Hello, fellow members of the Midnight Society. Welcome to a special episode where I'll be going back to Season 4 and ranking each episode from worst to best. Submitted for the approval of the Midnight Society, I call this The Tale of the Renegade Ghosts. Season 4 has 13 episodes, and we have the same Midnight Society members, so no changes this season, other than, my desire to keep making these season episode ranking videos. I kid. I love it. To end things on a high, I'll be going from my worst rated episode to my best rated one. Now, these are only my opinions on these episodes, and if you feel differently about them, that's great. I'd love to hear your picks in the comments below. I did polls on Reddit, YouTube, Patreon, and Facebook for the best and worst episodes of the season, and I'll be posting those results near the end of the video. This season has been a weird one. While there was only 3 episodes that I definitively did not approve of, there were 4 episodes that I was mixed on, and honestly, I could have gone either way with my vote on them. Will I have a change of heart on those episodes? Let's find out. Okay, kicking it off with my worst episode of Season 4, The Tale of the Renegade Virus. Gary's story about a teen getting infected by a computer virus created by his best friend. Now, this episode didn't work for me on multiple levels. While I had no issues with our main character Simon, his buddy Evan can go f*** himself. So these two friends play pranks on each other all the time. But in Evan's head, Simon is the only one doing anything wrong, to the point where he justifies infecting his friend with a computer virus. Now, to be fair, he just infects a computer program with the virus, and the virus mutates, as viruses do, and then attempts to hijack Simon's brain via blinky lights or whatever. Now, Simon apologizes to Evan multiple times throughout the episode before he's even wearing the VR helmet, but Evan acts like Simon is some kind of monster who needs to be taught a lesson. Even when he realizes that the virus is out of his control, he's still a dick about giving Simon the password to get out of the system. If I was Simon, I would have throat punched Evan the moment I got out of the VR.
You can't be too careful.
One of my other issues with the episode was the VR world itself. Simon chooses a medieval setting, but we never see that. Everything is just modern, which I know was due to budgetary reasons, but it still holds the episode back. The villain was also an issue. While the actor did a great job in the role, the virus was written in a ridiculously silly way. He could have been maniacal and threatening, but he just comes across as maniacal and goofy. If our villain was more serious and the setting gave more of a virtual reality vibe, this episode could have been really good, but instead it was
some real damage.
That's not to say the episode didn't do anything well. The body horror was decent, even if I did have a problem with the stunt hand looking like it belonged to a 40-year-old man. Now, I will say this. It was actually a toss-up for me for the worst episode between this one and our next episode. The Tale of the Ghastly Griner. Betty Ann's story about an aspiring comic book artist who accidentally brings a comic book villain to life. Now look, I know I'm in the minority on this one, but I can't stand this episode. I'm a huge fan of comics and comic book related media, and maybe that's what created the problem for me. Many find the finale presented in still comic book pages an adequate ending, but I found it the most boring ending in Are You Afraid of the Dark history. I also found the comic book artwork presented there pretty pedestrian. Now look, I know the show had a low budget, but there were ways that they could have given us a dynamic ending on a budget. Here's looking at you, Batman 66. Hell, I have no budget, and yet... With the exception of Hooper, I didn't even find any of the characters all that likable. Ethan was just sort of there, and Frankie annoyed the hell out of me. And none of that was on the actors. Their characters just weren't written well. Unless you define well as an eccentric dad bragger who calls a teen boy cakes, in which case I guess Frankie would be perfect.
Come on, I'm a professional.
The Griner has a great look, but for me, that's about where it ends. And I can't be alone on this either, because when I did the polls for the previous video on the best and worst villains of seasons 1 through 5, the Griner didn't come up. I think he had like 2 votes total, and I can't even remember if those were good or bad votes, which isn't great for such an iconic character. Think about it. When you see Are You Afraid of the Dark listicles or merchandise, there are a handful of characters from the series that get used repeatedly. Zeebo the Clown, Dr. Vink, Sardo, the Pool Monster, and the Griner. How does a visually iconic character such as that get only 2 votes? It's because he's not a great villain.
What's the matter, kids? Can't think of jokes?
The next episode also has a forgettable villain, but that's mainly because he doesn't speak and gets upstaged by a possible crackhead. The Tale of the Silent Servant. Betty Ann's tale about 2 kids who discover a scarecrow that obeys their commands with some disastrous results. This one upsets me because it could have been great with a few minor tweaks. Number 1, we needed some damn scares. The scarecrow had such a great look. Why did we not capitalize on it? If we could have had some shots of it moving quickly through the cornfields, stalking Mr. Peterson, it would have raised the stakes for the ending. As it was, the creature moved so damn slow, I just never felt like he was in danger. We definitely can't talk about this episode without talking about Crazy George. Now this is where the episode really falls apart for me. The actor played Crazy great, but I just don't understand what he brought to the story. I mean, we opened, in the past, in that flashback, with Earlstead, who seemed like he was going to murder George. Now, for the moments that Earlstead was on screen, I thought he was a great villain, and then he just disappears with no good explanation, only for us to get the babbling George for exposition in the present day.
I used to see rainbow-colored lights. Now, darkness.
If I were going to fix this, I would have kept Earlstead and given him some kind of beef with Mr. Peterson. The Scarecrow can then cause issues around the farm and stalk the kids. The kids investigate and learn about the murder of George and how Earlstead controls the Scarecrow. Maybe they still break the dragons like in the episode, but it frees the Scarecrow, causing it to turn on its master before it turns back into a lifeless heap of cloth and straw. The next 4 episodes, we are getting into some gray area. While one of them I did not approve of and the other 3 I did, I was still pretty mixed on all 4 and could have easily given the one a pass and not the others. In fact, the next episode on this list is one of the ones I approved, and not the one I didn't. The Tale of the Closet Keepers. Kiki's tale about aliens collecting children for their space zoo. I was on the fence about this episode, but ultimately approved it. It's not a bad episode. I love the premise, and, it has a real Twilight Zone vibe to it, but the show's budget really let it down here. The sets were laughably bad, though one could make the argument that it was on purpose to give it that 1950s thing from outer space vibe, but the budget shows itself in other ways too. The recycled alien zoo visitors, the kid actors who make no effort to provide an accent for the country that they're supposedly from, though some real money and detail went into that veiny pink shaft, so, we know where their priorities were.
Adolescent phraseology indicative of non-generic behavioral or physical characteristics to be avoided.
The acting in the episode was good, and the Keeper was an especially memorable villain, even if he did look a bit like the ghost of Christmas Past from the movie Scrooged. What I didn't care for was the security system for the zoo. For an advanced alien race, they had one of the most easily defeated security systems, providing the kids exactly what they needed to bypass the alarm in their cells. I don't know. I've never been a fan of animal zoos, so maybe that's just being transferred over to these human zoos.
Not very bright, are you?
The next episode I actually didn't approve, but somehow I've grown to enjoy it more than this one. Keep that in mind as I get into the second episode to feature questionable artwork on this list. The Tale of the Unfinished Painting. Gary's story about a teen artist whose new instructor is actually a headhunter for a head. Anyway, this is one that I feel maybe I should have approved. I still stand by my review criticisms, but it's actually an episode I enjoy on a rewatch. What were my criticisms? So glad you asked. I present the following exhibits as the episode's examples of fine art.
I love the paintings. Thank you. It is some of my best work.
I'm sorry. I thought I was going to be able to keep it together this time, but I can't. How Cody was ever convinced that Mrs. Breyer would be a good teacher is beyond me. Okay. Okay, jokes aside, My main issue with the episode was the constant outs that Cody had. She flat out gets told by one of the trapped spirits not to finish the painting. And even when she starts to suspect something strange is going on, she finishes the damn painting. And look, I know why. It's so that episode could happen, but I just wish that the signs of mischief would have been more subtle so that her completing the painting would have been more believable. Also, I stand by the ending I proposed in my review, that Cody signs Mrs. Breyer's name instead of her own, trapping Mrs. Breyer in the painting instead.
You tread on dangerous ground, young one.
I actually think the acting in this episode is great. Jewel State is excellent as always as our protagonist, and Vivian Race as Mrs. Breyer should teach a masterclass on villainy. Where the episode comes alive is when she gets to let loose and go full villain. If I had gotten more of that, I probably would have put this one in the approved column.
Really?
The next episode is the model of an average story. It's a model. Well, you'll laugh later. I'm talking about The Tale of Train Magic, Frank's final story about a grieving boy whose obsession with trains gets him into trouble. While I approved this episode, it gets really shortchanged by the show's runtime and unwillingness to do two-part episodes. This episode has some great locations, good acting, and a solid premise, but you know what it's lacking? Scares. Now, I gave some good examples of how they could have fixed that in my full review if you're interested. The episode is fine. It works, but it could have been great. With a two-part episode, we could have spent more time on the haunted train, and we could have explored more of the grief that Tim is dealing with. As it was, I feel the episode does a very poor job of having Tim work through it to arrive where he does at the end. Okay, there we go. I got through discussing this episode and didn't even mention how much I hate the title of it. Train magic? Are you f***ing kidding me?
So, I can do what I want.
While this story could have used two parts, the next one actually had two episodes and wasted them. The Tale of Cutter's Treasure, Parts 1 and 2. Gary and Frank's tale about the vengeful spirit of a pirate captain. Maybe my expectations were too high, but this two-episode story left me unsatisfied. I recall being undecided and only gave it a pass because the audience vote was so positive. These two episodes had some great acting across the board, and they featured Dr. Vink and Sardo, so how could they go wrong? Easy. They wasted all that they had. When you think about Vink and Sardo in one episode, what is it you want? You want the on-screen back and forth between Aaron Tager and Richard Dumont. Unfortunately, we get one scene with the two of them together, and they exchange like two sentences. It's the biggest tease in the entire run of the show. I don't know which nutbag was in charge of that decision, but I can tell you this. We're losing on the deal.
Have you seen our vomit?
I did love Charles Dutton as Cutter, but we barely see him and we learn almost nothing about him over the course of two episodes. When I yearn for these two-parters, it's often so that we can get more lore or world building, so I found it especially disappointing that when given the opportunity, the creators didn't do that. Feels a bit like a slap in the Oh, okay, that's a bit hyperbolic. It's really like a slap in the What? Two bleeps? Now you have no idea what I was being slapped in. You poor piece of Well, that certainly sounded ruder than I thought. Wait, bleeps could really make you sound like a real
Remember that.
Okay, we are out of the gray area episodes and are fully into the ones I approved of. Starting with the worst of the best, we have The Tale of the Room for Rent. Sam's story about a ghost who feels they were wronged in life and comes back for revenge. I think I like this episode more in concept than in execution, but it's still a solid story. A misguided spirit coming back to possess the person he thinks caused his death is a great premise. The whole backstory between Sarah, the ghost, and Grandpa also adds some intrigue when Jessie wonders if her grandfather caused the ghost's death. Where the episode lacks is in the scare department. For some reason, a lot of the ghost episodes from this show decide that ghosts don't need to be scary, and I completely disagree with that. This episode had some real room for scares, and they did nothing. I mean, I don't know if the scenes with the ghost doing ghostly things were meant to be scary, but I couldn't even see them affecting a child watching it.
Definitely not sleeping over again.
The ghost in this episode was a quiet fellow, which means he'd probably get along great with the ghost from our next episode, The Tale of the Quiet Librarian. Kiki's story about two teens who encounter a sinister librarian who hates noise with a murderous passion. This episode gave us a unique setting in the library, a couple of likable leads, and a pretty scary villain. The idea of silence as a weapon is horror gold. You can't hear what's coming for you, and you can't call out for help. It's pure nightmare fuel, and while this episode didn't push the boundaries of what they could have done with the premise, they still delivered a solid 20 minutes of television. While I was unclear on if the librarian was showing up in the present or if our protagonists were traveling into the past, it didn't take away from my enjoyment of the story. I do wish we had more of the librarian pursuing our protagonists, and I also could have used a research scene where Lori and Jace learn some stuff about the librarian. It's just a nitpick, though. I mean, you know I'm a sucker for lore.
I'm just trying to get you to lighten up.
I really liked the look of our librarian, and her sound-stealing box was a nice touch. The light from it reflected off her glasses in a very sinister way. The quiet room was also super creepy, especially when we get the first reveal of the dust and cobweb-covered ghost kids. Though it does beg the question, how the f*** that library was still open if that many kids disappeared there over the years? I mean, we even had 2 recent disappearances and nobody seemed to give one f***. It's the most unbelievable part of the episode, really. I mean, they were white kids. The police would have destroyed that library looking for them.
We found the missing kids!
While this episode was primarily an indoor affair, our next episode goes in the opposite direction. The Tale of the Long Ago Locket. Sam's tale about a shy teen who accidentally travels back in time. Or about a soldier who accidentally travels forward in time. Or somewhere in between. Anyway, I expect this pick to be very controversial. This is my 3rd favorite episode of the season, and I know most other people look down on it. Now, look, I'll be the first to admit it doesn't feel like an Are You Afraid of the Dark episode. It's not scary, nor does it really delve into the more, weird Twilight Zone-esque stuff. It's just a love story with a mild time travel element, but that doesn't lessen my enjoyment of it. Now, sure, there are a few problematic elements, but, I mean, that's true of any story that features time travel. Michael, it's me! Well, it's you! From the future! You cannot put Long Ago Locket as your number 3 pick. Everyone will hate you and think you don't know what you're talking about anymore. I don't. Yes, but they don't know that yet. I'm telling you, don't do it. It will destroy your channel. Yeah, but if I don't, then the outrage and fallout that caused you to invent time travel and come here won't happen, hence you wouldn't come here. Oh yeah. Good point. Carry on. Sorry about that. This episode had good acting, great costumes, and all the forest you could ask for, really. I do wish we could have spent more time with Jimmy and Lieutenant William traversing the present and the past, and, a more recognizable villain wouldn't hurt anything either. While I loved the costumes in this episode, I had some real issues with the period wardrobe in my number 2 pick. The Tale of the Water Demons. The Tucker story about 2 teens who draw the ire of a bunch of waterlogged ghosts? Zombies? Both? I don't know. This is the episode that made me realize there is a kid character in each season that I hate, and someday I should rank them all. In Season 4, that character is Sean. Now, I know this klepto learns his lesson by the end of the story, but I really just wanted those zombies to drag his ass into the drink, never to be seen again. Just me?
Would you chill?
My only issue with this episode was the choice of wardrobe on the demons, and the decision to make their shipwreck only 30 years before the story takes place to justify it. I mean, look, maybe I'm a romantic, but I like my water ghosts to look like they just stepped off the Titanic.
Forget it!
What this episode does well is everything else. The story of the ghosts haunting this old captain for salvaging their wreck is great, and our main characters getting roped in because Sean can't keep his hands to himself works quite well. The makeup on the monsters was excellent, and we had some really interesting settings.
I did it pretty bad.
My top pick also features a ghost, and this ghost could actually be considered a demon of sorts. My favorite episode of Season 4 is The Tale of the Fire Ghost, Tucker's story about a brother and sister tormented by a ghost at a firehouse. This episode has everything for me. A cool setting, a sinister villain, mostly good acting, and decent makeup and visual effects. While the story is very basic, it was delivered incredibly well. Jake Griffin is a terrific red herring. He's got a deep voice and intense delivery of every line that could be seen as terrifying or sexy, depending on your mood. The actual fire ghost appeared way more innocent until he turns into his charred form, though that could just be because he looked like a child wearing his dad's police uniform.
Hello? This is the police.
If I had any gripes with this episode, they would be that some of the acting wasn't that great, and we don't get nearly enough of the fire ghost. I would have loved to have seen him pursuing Jimmy and Roxy throughout the firehouse more. Other than that, this episode is rock solid. In fact, you might say it's fire. You get it? Because it's about... I didn't say I would say it, I said you might say it, so if you don't laugh, that's on you.
It just happened, okay? It doesn't matter who's to blame.
So, those were my Season 4 episode rankings, but now it's time to know what you all thought. I'm not going to go through every episode, but I am going to list the top 3 episodes and the bottom 3 episodes based on the polls that I ran. Let's start at the bottom again.
Naturally.
According to you all, the worst episode of Season 4 is The Tale of the Long Ago Locket, with Chelsea F. saying, Long Ago Locket was not scary in any way, shape, or form. Damn. Was future me right? No. I'm fine. I'm fine. Look, I think all the disdain for the episode is from what I already pointed out, and that's that it just doesn't feel like an Are You Afraid of the Dark episode. Either that or you all just hate love.
I love it.
I love it too.
The second worst episode, based on your votes, was The Tale of the Renegade Virus, with Chaos Dude 7111 saying Renegade Virus was just cringe and not much else, and Chicago Native 1989 saying the concept doesn't hold up, even in nostalgic terms. Hey, Renegade Virus was my pick for the worst episode of the season, so I can't argue with anything I'm seeing here. The third worst episode of Season 4, according to you, is The Tale of Train Magic, with Ichabod Hollow saying it was boring and not remotely scary, and Nicholas G saying Train Magic to me just fails on so many levels. You know that's right, it even failed on the name. F***ing Train Magic! I'm calm. Okay, let's end this thing on the positive. According to you, the Midnight Society members, the top 3 episodes of Season 4 are, starting in third place, The Tale of Cutter's Treasure Parts 1 and 2, with Tony E saying, fun fact, I've used what he wants is not what he desires in my D&D game.
What he wants is not what he desires.
What does that mean?
In second place, we have The Tale of the Water Demons, with Ripster87 saying it's probably in my top 3 all-time favorites, and C. Frank Run saying it's a pretty creepy episode, good atmosphere, spooky ghosts. See? They're ghosts. Or zombies. But they're definitely not demons.
I must look like an old fool.
Anyway, your number 1 best episode of Season 4 is The Tale of the Ghastly Griner. The Griner, the Ghastly Griner. With Lacey M saying, the Ghastly Griner was pure nightmare fuel. Still creeps me out a little. Okay, look, I'm not going to say anyone's wrong because we all like what we like, but I am confused. Where was all this love for the Griner in the previous polling for the best villain? You know what? I get it. I do. You're saying the episode is great, but the Griner sucks. Yeah, he's not going to like that. Fortunately, you'd never be able to tell. Thank you all for participating in the polls for this video. There were so many votes across Reddit, YouTube, Facebook, and Patreon. If you feel like your favorite or least favorite episode from Season 4 of Are You Afraid of the Dark got shafted, drop it in the comments. Be sure to check out the next episode on the best and worst tale titles of Seasons 1 through 5. Until next time, are you afraid of the dark?
I like skating.
Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like and a share, subscribe, yada, yada, yada. Only one more list like this to do. Just looking at you, Season 5.